Good morning, radio stations. Please stand by for the daily press briefing. We'll start at 10:15. That will be in 1 minute time. Radio stations, please stand by. In 40 seconds, we'll commence the daily press briefing. In 10 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, one and all. Welcome once again to another press briefing hosted by the Office of the Prime Minister. I am Kamala Baptiste-Aaron, Press Secretary. I will never say it is a pleasure to be here, because the circumstances under which this office is briefing the people of Dominica and the rest of the world are not great circumstances. What I will say, however, is that the government of Dominica continues to feel honored to be accountable to the people of Dominica by bringing them information and development as this country gets back on its feet after the passage of Hurricane Maria. Let me say a very special good morning to Honorable Dr. John Collin McIntyre, the Acting Prime Minister. His substantive post as Minister for Planning, Economic Development and Investment. He's also the Member of Parliament for the Roseau Valley constituency. Mrs. Garvin Joseph, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development and Investment. Mr. Chris Timmins, Project Manager of the Montreal Management Consultants Establishments Limited. Staff of MMCE. My colleagues in the media listening around the country, and those of you here, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, in Dominica and around the world, a very special good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce this event because it is not, ladies and gentlemen, about the propaganda that you hear. It is about the work that you see on the ground. And this morning, you will hear about the expansion of a project for the construction of modern, affordable housing. Again, another project that is done with the government of Dominica in collaboration with the private sector. And we want you to take note because, especially post-Maria, housing probably is the most important thing at this point in time. I will now call on Mr. Garvin Joseph, liaison officer, to give an overview of the project.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Planning, Economic Development and Investment, the Honorable Dr. John Collin McIntyre. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development and Investment, Mrs. Gloria Joseph. My colleague, Mr. Chris Timmins, the Project Manager of the Montreal Management Consultants Establishment. And just joining us now, the Honorable Ian Douglas, and my other MMCE colleagues, media workers, and those viewing and listening around Dominica and across the nations. Good morning. Leading international consultancy and immigration firm Montreal Management Consultants Establishment, or MMCE, is slated to launch its 2 new housing projects in the Commonwealth of Dominica next year. Following the onslaught of Tropical Storm Erika, the MMCE has been working closely with the government of Dominica to help its residents who were severely affected by the storm to reveal and rebuild their lives after the onslaught. From this initiative came its pilot project in Bellevue, a community with 340 residential units and several more spaces for commercial plazas and buildings. Bellevue has come a long way with a significant progress where it has set the standard as the model of social housing in the region. However, after the assault of Hurricane Maria last September, work had been temporarily halted. However, after the assault of Hurricane Maria, at present the project is back on track, with most of the contractors now in full force on site. The government of Dominica has shared its vision with MMCE of initiating a housing revolution across the country to assist several affected communities, as well as to supplement future demands. MMCE is committed to working closely with the government of Dominica to provide the best sustainable and durable housing solutions. Beginning 2018, a total of 100 residential units and more than 50 retail outlets will be constructed for the first project named the Roseau City Square. This will be located adjacent to the financial center of Dominica. The second project will rise in the Picard area of the Commonwealth of Dominica called Phoenix City, a fully integrated community with modern, sustainable infrastructure and underground utilities aptly named after the legendary bird, which resembles Dominica's rebirth. Phoenix City will consist of nearly 300 residential units with sizable commercial plazas that could serve both the private sector through retail spaces and the government entities through available spacious offices. MMCE would also like to inform of ongoing plans for smaller scale housing projects focusing on the communities of La Plaine, Grand Fond, Castle Bruce, the Kalinago territory, Vacas, and Newtown. Details of these projects and any other projects will be released within the next 3 to 4 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I invite to the podium the Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. John Collin McIntyre, for remarks.
Morning. Thank you very much, Press Secretary, Mrs. Kamala, John Baptiste-Aaron. Let me also recognize the presence of the Minister of Trade and Parliamentary Representative for the Portsmouth constituency, of course the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning, Chris Timmins from MMCE, Mr. Joseph, who presented to us, and associate staff of MMCE, members of the media and press. Good morning to all. Also to our listeners, both the domestic and both overseas. This morning is a special morning for us in terms of the presentation of this project. We can all recall in about 2 years ago when Tropical Storm Erika affected Dominica tremendously, in particular the areas of Petite Savanne, the Roseau Valley, and some of the southern villages. And we had to deal with something very, very catastrophic. Worst yet for the folks of Petite Savanne. And during that period, it became very difficult for the government of Dominica because we had a whole village that was really vulnerable. And of course, when we visited there, we saw the slides. We know of the death of a number of our friends, family members who have lost their lives, and the devastation to that area in terms of livelihoods as well too. And government, we had to think very, very fast there. And I must commend the Prime Minister and his cabinet, which I'm part of it, for really taking the bull by its horns and deciding, let us engage, affirm the capacity to deliver a project for us in that area to relocate and resettle the people of Petite Savanne. This was done. We had to acquire in excess of something about 40-something acres. We have a serious development taking place to relocate our people of Petite Savanne. We were well on our way, as we know. Then we were visited by Hurricane Maria this time, and it totally devastated the housing stock of Dominica. This is why we are here today again. But I must admit as well too, we're visiting the MMCE site where the construction is taking place at Bellevue Chopper. I am seeing resilience there, because every single shell has stood there, and Maria, we know, has passed over the entire landscape of Dominica. So it means that we had already taken into consideration building back better and in terms of resilience and climate change, which is something that's been articulated seriously, and Dominica has caught the stage in terms of the first climate resilient island on earth. So I think it's something very good for us. We are here today to launch two new projects, again with the MMCE partnership, and we're looking at the Georgetown area. Georgetown is a very, very flat area, quite a bit of access, proximity to a number of the business areas and whatnot, and the inclusion, which will be presented to us just now, lends well to a modern development, taking into consideration the whole view of building back better and building in terms of climate resilience. We are also here to launch the Pong project. But those of us who have known Roseau, and those of us who live in Roseau, and those of us who are familiar with Roseau, we would like to see something much better, in the perimeters of the financial center and the ministerial building, because this happened to be a very important part of Roseau. And I'm very happy, I must admit out of my heart, to see something come nice for Roseau in terms of its beauty, its durability, its face, and what it can lend. Your stadium is right there. The ministerial building is right there. Very, very resilient building. It was built, and I'm sure in those days it wasn't built in reference to the pillars and the water flowing under there. This is something that we are studying in terms of how well we design that area. Pong will lend to a serious development in Roseau to include all your business, little business shops, to empower the people in that area, to work with the people of that area too. For years they have been in shacks, and it has been an ugly sight in terms of Roseau. So I'm very happy to be here today to launch these two major projects. As acting Prime Minister, it's the government's policy and the policy of our Prime Minister in terms of the vision and what's been articulated internationally and globally to really build a modern city that's resilient. From what I see here today and what I've seen from the presentation, I'm seeing something that's very resilient, something that can stand up to the force of Hurricane Maria type events. We know for sure that there may be events in the next whatever years to come, because we happen to be in that part of the world, but we can live here peacefully by building properly. So today, with these few words, I'd like to say we're very happy to be here. The presentation here is to present to our people the Build Back Better concept, to build resilience, and also to respond in a very, very quick manner. We know that over 90% of the houses in Dominica, they were affected. And there are still people, suffering in terms of the elements of nature when it rains. But with our quick response, and if we can deliver these projects in rapid time, taking into consideration that we may have the little seasons that we have to deal with, but building for that and preparing for that such that we can deliver these projects to make sure that we target all the folks around who have been displaced. And of course, we are also looking at some of the more vulnerable villages in Dominica based on their location, their floodplains and whatnot, whereby we can relocate some of this and resettle some of our communities in Dominica. These communities have been built modern in terms of putting everything that's required for them within that area, such that the people don't have to go out too much and look for business. The opportunities are right there, the shops are there, the business places are there. In Portsmouth, for example, we're looking at a government complex there one time. I think the city of Portsmouth, the town of Portsmouth, is a very important town, has developed quite a bit, and I can see the Georgetown development as a very serious one for Portsmouth. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited representing the Prime Minister here today and being the acting Prime Minister, and I think this project will then send Dominica to a much higher plane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable McIntyre, the acting Prime Minister. I take this opportunity to formally welcome to this event the Minister for Trade, Energy and Employment, the Honourable Ian Douglas, the Member of Parliament for the Portsmouth constituency, just so that the people of Portsmouth, here in Dominica and the rest of the world, know that you are standing in their stead as this project is launched partly on their behalf. So welcome once again. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I will call to the podium the project manager, Mr. Chris Timmons, to give a technical overview and presentation of the projects.
Good morning, everybody. Acting Prime Minister, Minister, Permanent Secretaries. Thank you. So we're very pleased today to be announcing these two new projects, following on from our existing project in Bellevue, Chopin. The two projects will provide a much needed addition to the housing stock in Dominica as it stands. When designing the projects, we had to consider the requirements to be hurricane resistant or resilient, and also earthquake resilient as far as possible. Following our experiences in Bellevue, Chopin after Hurricane Maria, we're pleased to tell everybody that there was no significant damage or consequences to the structures which we had already built up there, in so much as none of the residential units, the roads, the underground services, the drainage suffered any damage whatsoever. Building on from that, we will be taking those designs and replicating the basic designs for 3-bedroom apartments, 2-bedroom apartments in Phoenix, Picard. Obviously, it is our intent that these designs will be, as far as possible, hurricane resilient. In order to further increase this resilience, we will be adding now reinforced concrete roof structures underneath what will become a decorative roof structure above it, providing an aesthetic architectural approach with structural integrity which should be able to stand the most of the extreme climatic conditions we anticipate happening in the future. I should also add that we are going to re-engineer Bellevue Chopin at this point in time to also include concrete roof structures to the structures we've already built there, and the further structures will have it as ongoing construction process. The units will be built of reinforced concrete in Picard. The complete watertight shell reinforced concrete, impact resistant windows, with hoping that this will put up with the worst of the conditions. There will be in Picard a total of 18 blocks of 8 units of 3 bedrooms, 9 blocks of 6 units of 3 bedrooms, bringing 198 three-bedroom units. There will be 11 blocks of 8 units of two-bedroom apartments, being 88, and 1 block of 6-bedroom apartments, being 6 units, bringing the total units as designed at the moment to 292 apartments. There will be a sports field. There will be children's play areas. In addition to this, there will be a central commercial and office building, which really forms the gateway to the new development. This will contain 14 retail units and 22 office units, with the intent of these being to provide local governmental offices and possibly some private offices. The site at Picard is a superb site. It's very much level, it has good views, and it will be a significantly easier site for us to develop than the one at Bellevue Chopin, topographically, geographically, and in terms of access. The designs of the buildings architecturally from outside are the same as we are doing at Bellevue Chopin, and the main commercial office building will be a building of significant architectural impact for the local environment. In Roseau city centre, or Pond as it's known locally, again, this is a different challenge. It is a more constrained site. It is a site which requires special consideration, both architecturally for its location, taking into account the historical buildings which are already around this area. It's not, and we don't want to turn our back on Roseau's history when we're developing and designing the new building. We therefore have come up with a plan to do 4 separate blocks. These blocks will contain, they are 3 stories, they are 84 two-bedroom units, 16 three-bedroom units, and 54 ground floor retail units. There will be parking within the central plaza area. Again, they are designed, and it's a difficult design to consider in terms of it has to climate resilient, has to take into account what happened in Maria. So our preferred solution at this point in time is to go for a steel frame solution with a reinforced concrete outer shell, reinforced concrete roof with an architectural roof over the top to provide the correct architectural integrity for the area. They are very modern units. Internally, the 2 bedrooms are in excess of 700 square feet and the 3 bedrooms are in excess of 850 square feet. When you see the drawings for this, which will be released, you will see we have taken cognizance of the historical influences, so it will tie in with the existing Roseau architecture as well as using the best of modern architecture, and it will also provide a architecturally important building opposite the cricket stadium, which will be able to integrate the cricket stadium better into the city centre than it is presently doing. So again, as in Picard, it is our intent, it is our will that we design it as climate resistance problem. So we will be using impact resistant windows. We are using reinforced concrete. All services in both developments are underground. From an architectural point of view, it's obviously more attractive. From a climatic point of view, if it's underground, it's less likely to get damage in high winds. We, as the Honourable Prime Minister mentioned earlier, we're also exploring the opportunities for 5 further areas on the East Coast in particular, and these again will be new communities. They will be designed to be climate resistant, and we will use the models which are tried and tested and we know have stood the worst of Hurricane Maria up in Bellevue Chopin. Okay. Thank you.
At this time, the floor is open for questions from the media.
Good morning. I'm not sure if I have any questions per se, but just to complement the effort of what's been said before, the acting Prime Minister, you can probably answer a couple of these concerns. In terms of what's going to be happening in Roseau with the, how you call it, City Square? Sounds very exciting, City Square. I would take it that all the logistics have been put in place in terms of acquiring land and moving the people and whatever it is and so on. But I didn't hear anything about a community center, nor in Roseau, nor in Portsmouth. It seems as if in these areas we need to put up a building or a structure, whatever it is, that we can call a community center where people can meet. The residents can meet, probably get involved in indoor sporting activities like table tennis and those sort of things. Could you speak to that for us, please?
Thank you. In reference to your question and your positive comments, I must say, these items that you mentioned are included in the Georgetown area, Phoenix City, the new Phoenix City. We're going to be sporting complexes in terms of your tennis, your basketball, and you name it. Of course, you'll be able to put a world-class cricket pitch in there because of the size, and it's very, very important land for housing and shelter. But yes, that is taken into consideration, along with a government complex where we can look at a sort of a governmental type building in Georgetown. In Roseau, as you know, we have limited land space for that development. There is housing, shelter importance, but also there'll be, the landscape will lend to recreational areas for the kids and whatnot, outside the apartment. So that's taken into consideration as well too. The stadium is right next door. We can look at the future of the stadium and how we can even use it much better. And there are a number of other playing fields around there, but we thought to put a playing field down in Pond would be very difficult to build shelter there. But there are definitely areas for that. Well, I'm sure we can design a little table tennis area there. After all, table it certainly can be included in that area. But to say a basketball court in Pong or a huge tennis court in Tong might be difficult for us because, as we know, I respect, as we know, the importance of shelter post-Maria has become very, very important. And I'm sure the people who live in Roseau and the environs, and in the Pong area in particular, would like to feel like they're living in some important part of the world, but right here in Roseau. So the primary concern there is to put some serious housing in there, upscale housing, built on the resilience, of course, important for us, hurricanes and earthquakes, and look at what sort of recreational areas we can look, in the nice little landscape around your trees, the kids under the playing on the lawn and whatnot. That's the sort of ambience we'd like for Roseau. And of course, definitely so, I would look at the inclusion of a table tennis, maybe in the lower bottom corridor areas. We could look at something for that, I'm sure of that.
Hi, good morning. Randall from the Chronicle newspaper. Can you speak to us, or anyone speak to us, in terms of when the project, I know it's expected to commence in 2018, is it the first quarter of 2018? Has the date been selected? As well, how long the project will take? And can someone also speak to us in terms of the cost for the project, as to how much it is projected to cost? Thank you.
Mr. Chris Timmins will share some of his some of that with us now. Yeah.
Hello. In terms of timescale, we are presently out to tender with leading contractors both regionally and internationally for both projects. Our intent is to agree to go to contract with a contractor in the first quarter of 2018 with the intent of starting on site at the beginning of the second quarter of 2018 for both projects. In terms of cost, the cost, whilst we have in our minds a budget figure, the cost will not be defined until such time as we receive tenders from contractors. It would be wrong at this point in time for us to be quoting figures around taking into account the present construction climate, availability of materials, etc. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this takes us to the end of this press briefing on this Monday morning, and both the people of Roseau Central and the people of Portsmouth can look forward to very exciting times post-Hurricane Maria. Compliments, again, the Commonwealth of Dominica in partnership with the private sector. Once again, I will take the opportunity to thank the Acting Prime Minister, the Minister for Employment, Trade, Energy and Employment, Honorable Ian Douglas, the Permanent Secretary, and definitely the management of MMCE. We thank you for your collaboration with the Government of Dominica. The media, ladies and gentlemen, one and all, thank you and have a great day.